Look at these hands. These are the hands of a doctor, a dentist to be precise. They are trained to be steady, to be dull, to fix cavities, to ease pain, to repair broken smiles. They are hands that swore an oath. First, do no harm. Now, imagine those same hands gripping the searing hot barrel of a heavy machine gun. Imagine them reloading ammunition belts covered in mud and blood. Imagine them pulling the trigger again and again until the barrel glows red hot. This is the story of Captain Ben Salomon. He didn't go to war to kill people. He went to the Pacific to fix teeth. He was the regimental dentist for the 27th Infantry Division, but on July 7, 1944, on the island of Saipan, Ben Salomon found himself alone, wounded, and staring down the largest suicide charge of World War II. When the smoke cleared the next morning, American soldiers found Ben's body. He was slumped over a machine gun, and piled in front of him, in a semicircle of death, were 98 enemy soldiers. 98. It is one of the highest individual kill counts in American military history, and it was achieved by a Jewish dentist from Milwaukee who told his patients to run while he held the line. We usually think of heroes as muscle-bound superstars, but sometimes the most dangerous man on the battlefield is the quiet guy who just wants everyone to be safe. Today on G.I.Stories, we are walking into the Valley of Hell to witness the final stand of the dentist of Saipan. Benjamin Louis Salomon was born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin in 1914. If you met him before the war, you would never guess he was capable of violence. He was the definition of a good kid. He was an Eagle Scout, the highest rank in the Boy Scouts of America. He was quiet, athletic, and fiercely intelligent. He moved to Los Angeles and graduated from the USC Dental School in 1937. He opened a practice. He had patients who loved him. He was living the American dream. But in 1940, with the shadow of war growing in Europe and Asia, Ben did something surprising. He didn't wait to be drafted. He enlisted in the Army. At first, he was just a private in the infantry. He was a crack shot with a rifle and the pistol skills he learned as a scout, and he was surprisingly tough. His commanding officers noticed that this dentist was actually a natural soldier. They promoted him to sergeant and put him in charge of a machine gun section. But the Army is a bureaucracy. They looked at his file, saw a DDS doctor of dental surgery, and said, "What are you doing with a machine gun, son? You're an officer." In 1942, they offered him a commission as a lieutenant in the Army Dental Corps. Ben accepted, but with mixed feelings. He wanted to fight, but the Army needed him to fix teeth. He was assigned to the 105th Infantry Regiment, 27th Infantry Division. While training in Hawaii, Ben wasn't like the other doctors. Most medical officers stayed in the rear, playing cards and drinking coffee. Ben was out in the mud with the infantry. He won the title of Best All-Around Soldier in his regiment. He would finish his dental work and then go run obstacle courses with the grunts. He told his friends, "If I'm going into combat with these boys, I need to be as fit as they are." He didn't know it yet, but that extra training was the only thing that would keep him alive when the world ended on Saipan, June 10th, 1944. While the world was watching the invasion of Normandy in Europe, the Americans launched an equally massive invasion in the Pacific. Saipan was critical. It was close enough to Japan that American B-29 bombers could fly from there and bomb Tokyo. The Japanese knew this. To them, Saipan was the final line of defense. Losing Saipan meant losing the war. The battle was a nightmare. The Japanese defenders, led by General Yoshitsugu Saito, dug into caves and mountains. They fought for every inch of sand. Ben Salomon landed on the beach with the 105th Infantry. Because casualties were so high, Ben wasn't just fixing teeth. He was acting as a frontline surgeon. Bureaucracy, the Americans had pushed the Japanese to the northern tip of the island, near a place called Tanapag Plain. The Japanese army was broken. They were starving. They had no ammo. They had no water. General Saito, the Japanese commander, knew it was over. He was too sick and old to fight, so he prepared to commit ritual suicide. But before he died, he issued one final, terrifying order to his remaining 5,000 troops. There is no longer any distinction between civilians and soldiers. It would be better to die in honor than be captured in disgrace. We will advance to attack the American forces, and we'll all die together." He ordered a Yokusaya shattering jewel. Americans call it a Banzai charge. It is a suicide attack. The goal isn't to win. The goal is to kill as many enemies as possible before you die. On the afternoon of July 6th, Ben Salomon was setting up his aid station. He chose a spot about 50 yards behind the front line foxholes. He wanted to be close to the wounded. The aid station was just a large tent. Inside, it was hot, smelling of antiseptic and blood. Ben had about 30 wounded men, their soldiers with bullet wounds, shrapnel tears, malaria. As the sun set, the jungle went quiet. Too quiet. Ben checked his patience. He cleaned his instruments. He probably checked his M1 carbine. Just in case. He had no idea that less than 500 yards away, in the darkness, 5,000 men were gathering, drinking their last sips of sake and fixing bayonets. At 4:45 a.m., the silence broke. First, a low rumble, then screams. Thousands of voices screaming. Tino Hikaba. The ground literally shook. The Japanese wave hit the American 1st and 2nd battalions like a freight train. The Americans fired their machine guns until the barrels melted, but there were too many targets. The Japanese soldiers climbed over piles of their own dead to get to the foxholes. Within minutes, the front line disintegrated. The American perimeter was overrun. The wave didn't stop. It kept rolling. Straight toward Ben Salomon's aid station. Ben was working on a wounded soldier when the tent flap flew open. A Japanese soldier burst in. Bayonet fixed, Ben didn't hesitate. In one fluid motion, the Eagle Scout dentist grabbed an M1 rifle that was leaning against a table. He shot the intruder dead. Seconds later, 2 more Japanese soldiers rushed in. Ben didn't have time to reload. He swung the rifle like a club. He jammed the butt of the rifle into the first soldier's stomach and clubbed him in the head. The second soldier lunged with a bayonet. Ben sidestepped, drew a knife, and killed him in hand-to-hand combat. Ben ran outside. The scene was apocalyptic. Flares lit up the sky. Everywhere he looked, Japanese soldiers were swarming. They were killing the wounded on their stretchers. Ben realized the grim truth. The aid station was lost. If they staget, everyone would die. He turned to his medics and shouted orders. "Get the wounded out. Evacuate to the regimental command post. I will hold them back." His men looked at him. "Captain, you can't stay here alone." Ben didn't argue. He just grabbed a rifle and started firing. "Go! Now!" Chapter 4. The Last Stand. As the wounded hobbled away into the jungle, Ben Salomon didn't retreat. He advanced. He saw an abandoned heavy machine gun position. The gunners were dead. Ben climbed over the sandbags. He checked the gun. A water-cooled M1917 Browning heavy machine gun. It was loaded. This is the moment that Dennis disappeared and the warrior took over. Ben sat behind the gun. He had a clear field of fire. The Japanese were pouring out of a ravine. Ben opened fire. He wasn't just spraying bullets blindly. Remember, he was an expert marksman. He fired in controlled bursts. He traversed the gun left and right, creating a wall of lead. The Japanese focused on him. He became the only obstacle in their path. Bullets snapped around him. Grenades exploded nearby. He was hit. Shrapnel tore into his leg. A bullet grazed his arm. He kept fighting. When the ammo belt ran dry, he reloaded. Alone. A process that usually takes 2 men. When the gun jammed, it cleared Italiano. Witness sister. Retreating medics looked back one last time. They saw Captain Salomon, silhouetted against the flares, hunched over the gun, firing relentlessly. He was shouting defiance. He was buying time. Every second he held that trigger was another second for the wounded to escape. Eventually, the sheer number of enemies overwhelmed him. The gun went silent. The tide of the Banzai charge washed over his position and continued down the hill. Chapter 5. The scene of the crime the next morning. The American reserves counterattacked and retook the ground. Captain Edmund Love, the division's historian, was walking through the carnage. documenting the battle. He approached the position where the aid station had been. What he found defied belief. Captain Love found Ben Salomon's body slumped over the machine gun, but it was the scene around him that told the story. Captain Love started counting the enemy dead. In front of the machine gun, heaped in piles, were 98 Japanese bodies. Some were so close that they had fallen on top of the gun barrel. But that wasn't all. When the coroner examined Ben's body, they found 76 distinct wounds. 76 bullet holes, bayonet slashes, shrapnel, tears. Wait, let's analyze that. Many of those wounds were post-mortem, inflicted after he died by angry enemies passing by. But the autopsy showed that fully 24 of those wounds were inflicted while he was still alive. He had been shot or stabbed 24 times, and he was still firing that gun until the very last moment. Captain Love concluded, Ben Salomon didn't just hold the position. He practically wiped out an entire company by himself. Because of Ben, the wounded men from the aid station made it to safety. He traded his life for theirs. Chapter 6. The Bureaucracy of Honor. This is a clear-cut Medal of Honor. Case. Right. Self-sacrifice. Check. Saving others. Check. Extraordinary heroism. Check. Check. The 27th Division Commander, Kenneth Algren, immediately recommended Ben for the Medal of Honor. But Washington, D.C. said no. Why? Because of a technicality in the Geneva Convention. The rules of war state that medical personnel wearing the Red Cross armband are non-combatants. They cannot take up offensive arms against the enemy. If they do, they lose their protected status. The bureaucrats argued Captain Salomon was a medical officer. He manned a machine gun, that is, an offensive weapon. We cannot give a Medal of Honor to a doctor for killing people. It was absurd. Ben wasn't attacking. He was defending his helpless patients against a suicide charge that was massacring everyone. But the Army stuck to the rules. The recommendation was denied. The story should have ended there. But Ben's friends and the men he saved never forgot. For decades, they petitioned the Army. They argued that Ben had taken off his Red Cross armband before he picked up the gun. They argued that self-defense allows for anything. Finally, in the late 1990s, Dr. Robert West, a USC Dental School alumnus, took up the cause. He dug through archives, found the original autopsy reports, and proved that Ben was acting in defense of his patients. The Army finally admitted they were wrong. On May 1st, 2000, 2:58, years after the battle, President George W. Bush presented the Medal of Honor to Dr. Robert West. The citation read, Captain Salomon's extraordinary heroism and devotion to duty are in keeping with the highest traditions of military service. It was the first time in history a dentist received the nation's highest award. Conclusion. The story of Ben Salomon haunts me. Here was a man who spent 30 years of his life learning how to heal. He learned how to fix teeth, how to stop pain, and in the final 30 minutes of his life, he had to become a destroyer. He proves that you don't need to be a born killer to be a warrior. You just need something worth protecting. When the monsters came to the door, the dentist didn't hide. He stood his ground, and 98 enemies learned the hard way that you should never corner a man who has nothing left to lose. Rest in peace, Doctor. You saved the smiles of a lot of men that day. This story is incredible. Do you agree with the Army's initial decision to deny the medal because he was a doctor? Or was it a stupid bureaucratic mistake? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this deep dive into history, please subscribe to G.I. Stories. We are dedicated